What's going on, guys? Aaron here with LSK Suspension. We've got Nestor here from Xtravel, and we are really excited to partner with Xtravel. Today we've got a new LSK kit featuring Xtravel technology, and Nestor is here to tell us why this thing is so great. So, now that this thing's ready to go, we're going to take it out tomorrow.
Looks really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, we're really excited. Went together really well, and yeah, I mean, what should I expect when we're taking it out for a spin?
Well, I'm really excited for you to drive this thing because it's going to be like nothing you've ever driven.
Yeah.
You're going to feel nothing in the steering wheel. You're going to be able to hit stuff and it's not going to upset the car. You're going to be able to slide into berms and not kind of jerk the wheel out of your hand. You're going to be able to go through off camber, cross grain stuff. It's going to feel great. So I just can't wait to see what your reaction is. A lot of that's just based on this geometry and this technology that we have, and I'm just really happy that you guys are able to utilize that technology and then implement it into, the CanAm kit and any future kits that you guys want.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. As you guys know, if you have a CanAm, the X3 steering, you feel like it's going to get ripped out of your hand, and that's what this really solves, and that's what it's all about, is reducing the scrub radius, reducing the steering feedback, and making those stock steering racks have a better chance at controlling this thing. And even if it's not a stock steering rack, it helps improve it anyway. This car has a shock therapy rack, which is a great improvement, but now with the Xtravel on there as well, we're really looking forward to this being a really killer setup.
All right, so what makes the Xtravel technology so different than standard A-arm suspension? So you see on this LSK kit, you've got double pivots on the top, double pivots on the bottom. And
that helps make a virtual point. So if we drew an imaginary line through both of the links and they intersected, the point of rotation is now out here. Am I right?
Yeah. So it moves that point out to the tire. So instead of the tire leveraging against this point, so you have basically like the tire's hitting something and you have kind of like a barn door effect trying to tear the steering out of it.
Yeah. As I'm coming up on rocks and things are hitting right here, if my pivot point's right here, it's gonna stay straight. But if my pivot point is naturally over here and I hit it, it's gonna want to rotate the tire every time I hit a bump. And so this is virtually eliminating that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it takes all the load away from the steering rack, the steering wheel. So you're gonna have better longevity of parts. So you people that normally spend the money on aftermarket racks, aftermarket tie rods,
like steering supports and stuff.
Yeah. So they don't have to spend that kind of money on that when they're putting this suspension system on.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. And also, I'm always thinking about, we've done 3 races with this so far in District 38, and always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is the ball joint going to fail? And it definitely is reassuring to know that there's 2 uniballs for the upper arm and 2 uniballs on the lower arm, and not thinking about the fact that there's going to be a ball joint pop off and we lose a wheel. So it's definitely really cool to have that feature along with all the benefits that go along with the geometry.
Yeah, and then not only is the geometry different as far as the taking the load from the steering, but we changed the geometry so that the tires actually camber gain correctly when you steer the car. So normally when you steer a car, the inside tire lays over, the outside tire lays in, and so you do that for a road car, and when you go and weight transfer on the outer tire, normally it's fine. You're not going to notice much difference. But when you actually are driving it hard and you throw it into a slide and you're counter steering, that inside tire is laid over on a standard A-arm, and it's just basically trying to hit the rim and debead the tire is how it's set up. On this, it's not. It's following the camber curve of any point in the suspension, so you always have the correct tire patch when you're steering the car. It gives you a lot more rideability. It's just way more, it's just a consistent way.
Yeah, we notice when we turn the wheels, the tire's leaned into where we're going to be turning into, and therefore, keeping us connected with the ground and better traction. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what it's all about.
Yeah, I can't wait.
This is gonna be cool. And on top of that, like one thing I've really noticed, and I'd really like to ask you, is like in 4-wheel drive, these cars are just not fun in 4-wheel drive to hang on to.
Yeah.
You're going through the bumps, and whatever front wheel grabs a bump first is where it's gonna pull it. And since the pivot from the factory is not in the center of the tire, if that tire grabs, it's gonna wanna pull the wheel back or pull the other one forward, and so you're always kind of fighting it. So I'm actually looking forward to driving this car in full drive and not getting beat up while doing it.
Yeah, torque steer is a huge benefit with the Xtravel technology. It's massive. It's always going to go where you point it. Whether you're on the gas, off the gas, four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive,
yeah.
hit the brakes. If you hit a huge puddle or rut on one side, tires are going to go where you point them.
That's awesome. One of my favorite features about this this kit is that the lower skid plate. We have 1/4 inch UMHW with a little lip here for anything coming in, and one of the things that's pretty sweet is the articulation between the bottom links is pretty wild, and therefore there's actually a slot here with a spacer that rotates in there, and it makes it so that when you're turning the wheel, the skid plate actually moves inside that slot. And to be honest with you, that is a really cool feature. It's kind of fun to watch too when you turn the wheel.
Yeah, that's definitely an eye catcher for everyone.
Yeah, definitely, and not having to think about things getting slipped into the arm and getting caught in there. It just kind of slides right over it.
Yeah.
So one of the really cool benefits of this kit is that, as you guys know from the factory, there's a lot of single shear pivots, single shear on the shock pivot, single shear on the lower control arms, and this kit solves that. We actually include a whole bulkhead in it that makes everything double shear, and then also double shears the actual shock tower. You'll notice that even though we have the factory pivot points here for the shocks, we actually have a bung here that actually spaces the shocks forward for a geometry purpose, and then we also have a support in the front. So the entire shock is actually in between an entire truss, and makes this whole front end essentially self-sustaining and not relying on the factory chassis as much as it did originally. And that's a huge benefit, because you could imagine just how it was before. The plastic shroud on the fan would just break if it flexed. So it's pretty cool to get the whole benefit of the kit, and then on top of that, beef up the whole front end. So I'm actually wondering, what's the benefit of the shocks being pushed forward?
So, not to get into the weeds of suspension geometry or anything else, but basically moving that shock forward for this suspension system neutralizes the steering and the effects that the shock has on the steering system.
So does it feel just more natural, and it's not going to influence the steering any?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. So if you're wondering what comes with the kit, we're including a spindle, upper links, lower links. You're going to run your factory axles or your aftermarket axles of a factory length. We are also going to provide you with a shorter tie rod. Due to the geometry of the kit, we're going to give you an OEM tie rod that is 2 inches shorter. If you have an aftermarket tie rod, you're welcome to shorten them down 2 inches. Just make sure before you do it that you double check that the 2 inches works for your setup. We are also giving you the bulkhead, the shock mount, pretty much everything you need to make this kit work. All the factory brake lines still work, as we're still running the factory width. And after that, as far as limit straps goes, we're running the Sandcraft limit strap. We do not include this. However, we do recommend you run a limit strap. And yeah, we're pretty excited about getting this ready to go for you guys. Xtravel technology has been used in some of the hardest races, including King of the Hammers, Baja 1000, Score, Best in the Desert, and more races. Really appreciate you coming out and answering a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment below, follow us on Instagram at LSK Suspension, and then also check us out at lsksuspension.com. On top of that, don't forget to visit and follow Xtravel Suspension on Instagram, and give their YouTube a follow as well.